Hi, everybody, and thanks for having me. My name is Julian, and my talk is called Getting Past the Block. I encounter a creative block regularly, and it's always at the moment when I most want ideas to flow like a game jam. It usually happens when I'm overwhelmed with options or have lofty ideas of what I want to get done, or if I don't have enough information on what I'm doing. So I wanted to share 10 strategies that help me set my expectations and general ideas, know when to move on, so I can get everything done that I want to in the jam. So these are going to be pretty audio centric, but hopefully there's some crossover for other disciplines. So number one is establish the minimum viable product. The first thing I like to know when I'm in a jam is when will I know when I'm done the jam? And that involves knowing what will be in the game and what won't be. So I start off by making a list of everything that could possibly be in the game if you had all the time in the world and all the resources. And then I start picking out all the elements that absolutely need to be in. And that is my minimum viable product, the bare minimum of what I want done in the jam. That's it. And if I get to all that, then I'm done and I can sleep soundly Sunday night. Then afterwards, I identify some extras from the original big list as some stretch goals that would be nice to include if there's extra time. This way, right from the start, I've defined what it is I'm going to do. And most importantly for me, I know what I'm not going to do and why. So I know that if I get a good idea, that I'm just putting it aside because there just isn't time, but at least I've thought about it and put it in the back pocket for a later day. So number two, pick the easiest task first. After the list of assets is made, it's time to get started. But where do you start? This can be overwhelming for me, especially in a jam. It can be tempting to like tackle that big, meaty, challenging task right off the bat. Um, but when I'm not sure, I don't know where to start, I pick the task that seems the easiest or the most familiar to me. This can be a nice warm up. It can be an easy success experience, and it can get the creative juices flowing for other ideas. Number three, use the game's universe for inspiration. My personal biggest moment of creative block comes when I start a new asset. I get overwhelmed with possibility and I need to create some boundaries to narrow my options. So I look towards the game that we're making and dive into the universe, the setting, the characters, the art, the gameplay, and then I link musical or audio qualities to it. For example, if I'm making a piece of music for, say, a space game, I'll list the qualities of the scene and tie specific musical elements to that. If the setting was, say, an asteroid belt, maybe it would be a more dense track. If it's chase scene, maybe it'd be a fast tempo, maybe in a minor key because it's a tense situation. Maybe there'd be a lot of synthesizers because it's like a future setting. And maybe the art style is pixel art, so I'd add some chiptune elements. So by drawing from the universe, all of a sudden from nothing, I have the building blocks of my track, and it's all directly related to the source material. And I can get pretty specific about this as well, and I like list everything down. It's like, what's my melody going to be? It's attached to this character, so it's going to be like this, and then there's going to be a bass line that draws from this element. So then the piece kind of writes itself because I'm linking everything back to the source material of the game. Number four, use motives and themes to create consistency. So you can build on this previous strategy on a larger scale by using musical themes to create consistency. A theme is any recurring musical concept attached to an element of the game. Usually these are melodies like Mario, like da 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 da, but it doesn't need to end there. It can be a rhythm, a style, processing effect, an instrument, anything that comes back cyclically through the game. So maybe that synthesizer that we used in that space example, it comes back in the title screen and the credits. So reusing material not only saves you time creating new content, but it also creates consistencies and unity, leaving the player feeling like everything belongs. The same is relevant to sound design. Using similar processing effects and even like a basic structure to some sounds creates a cohesive audio treatment. If it doesn't exist, make it up. Number five. Sometimes, especially in jam games, there isn't a lot of game universe to draw from because just frankly, there wasn't the time to create it or think of it. If what I'm making is feeling a little generic, sometimes I'll just make up some backstory to whatever I'm working on. Like if I'm making a sword swinging sound, maybe this sword has hidden magical properties. This might lead me to adding some subtle extra sound design effects that make it more unique and interesting. Nobody really needs to know about your rationale, but it can be this breadcrumb that leads to some unique results. Number six, fall back on what you know. Sometimes I'll be halfway through something and just not know what's supposed to come next. Maybe I placed a lot of pressure on myself to make something I've never made before. Maybe you've had that experience. In those moments when nothing seems good enough, I find it's best to sometimes actually take a step back and pull out some old trick that I just know will be successful. While it feels like I'm kind of backing down to this challenge, sometimes using something familiar can be a stepping stone or a crutch to get me past this block in the first place. And in doing so, that'll actually lead me to that innovative place that I was hoping to get to anyway. Number seven, know when good enough is good enough. Further, you probably won't have time to make everything to the best of your ability because that takes time, and time is in short supply during a game jam. Graham alluded to this. Thus, it's important to know when something is good enough so you can move on to the next task. In my opinion, game audio is more than the sum of its parts. A fully realized audio treatment made with assets that are good enough creates a greater effect than one piece of music or one sound individually. I feel like getting to those extra features on your original asset list helps make a jam game feel bigger than a jam game because people aren't always expecting those little Easter eggy type features beyond the minimal viable product. So I tend to follow the rule that or believe that the last 20% of the work takes 80% of the time. So if something is at my 80% satisfaction, probably most of what I was trying to get across is in it, like my intention and maybe the effect is coming clear. And, for game jam, that's usually good enough for me. And if there's time to polish, I'll come back to it. So, further, I also think about in the jam, what is gonna be heard the most in this game that we're making? Like, is it a music centric game or is it a sound effects centric game? Do is this the time that I need to make my 10-minute like magnum opus piece, or can I get away with